Combine the total wealth of Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. Double it. You are still nowhere near the financial power of a single Dutch company from the 1600s. The history of capitalism taught in business schools is often scrubbed of its darker details. Its true origin lies in the mechanisms of a sovereign corporate machine. A small, swampy nation with almost no natural resources built a $7.9 trillion empire long before the existence of modern banking. The Dutch relied on a masterclass in risk mitigation, a system that eventually demanded absolute, terrifying brutality to maintain its scale. In the late 1500s, the global economy centered on pepper, cinnamon, and cloves. In European markets, these Asian spices were worth more than their weight in silver. But the logistics were a nightmare. Sending a wooden ship to Indonesia meant a 50% chance of losing the vessel, the crew, and the cargo to pirates, typhoons, or disease. Because no single merchant could survive a total loss of that scale, the trade was effectively stalled by a massive logistical barrier. The Dutch needed a way to spread this risk across an entire population to compete with the established Spanish and Portuguese empires. In 1602, the Dutch government forced competing merchants to merge into a single syndicate, the Verenigde Oost-Indische Compagnie, or the VOC. To raise the necessary cash for a massive fleet, they launched the world's first IPO. They asked citizens to buy fractions of the company's future profits in exchange for a piece of paper, a share. Instead of one aristocrat risking a fortune, 1 million common bakers, blacksmiths, and maids each put forward a small fraction of their own savings. The invention of the stock market solved the capital problem, but this massive civilian investment now required an unprecedented level of protection. To protect their global trade routes, the VOC needed more than just a fleet. They needed the legal authority of a nation-state. Their founding charter contained Article 35, which granted the corporations sovereign powers to wage war, negotiate international treaties, and mint their own currency. This copper coin from 1789 shows the reality of that power. The VOC was a private company manufacturing its own official currency. The crowned crest on the reverse proves they operated as a law unto itself, building fortresses and executing prisoners without oversight. The VOC was a corporate military machine that used state-sanctioned violence as a primary business strategy. The company deployed its private navy to Indonesia, establishing a heavily fortified military headquarters in Batavia. Their model was to offer military support to regional kings in exchange for 100% exclusive trade monopolies. When local leaders tried to trade with competitors, the VOC used its cannons to enforce the exclusivity of their contracts. The company made military violence the primary mechanism for generating and protecting their profits. By the 1620s, the VOC focused on nutmeg. It was believed to cure the plague and grew only in the remote Banda Islands. The VOC dispatched Jan Pieterszoon Coen to secure the monopoly. Coen lived by a simple personal motto, "Despair not, spare your enemies not." When the native inhabitants of the islands attempted to trade their nutmeg with the British, shareholder profits in Amsterdam were directly threatened. In 1621, Coen used his heavily armed corporate mercenaries to systematically massacre or enslave a population of nearly 15,000 native islanders. The monopoly was secured, and stock prices rose. The system was designed to reward those who could turn atrocities into dividends. The VOC shipped 2.5 million tons of Asian goods, 5 times more than the British East India Company. But this scale hid a growing internal rot. The massive overhead of maintaining 10,000 private soldiers and dozens of stone fortresses began to consume the very profits they were built to protect. Employees began smuggling goods for their own private wealth, bypassing the company ledgers. By the late 1700s, the public joked that VOC stood for perished under corruption. By 1799, the corporation went bankrupt, crushed by the weight of its own greed and the cost of its military operations. The VOC collapsed because the expense of maintaining its 10,000 soldiers and stone fortresses eventually outweighed the value of the spices they guarded. The Dutch government was forced to bail out the company, absorbing its debts and turning a corporate empire into a formal colonial state. The original wooden ships have long since rotted away, but the VOC's core innovations still run the entire global economy. The stock market, shareholder dividends, and corporate lobbying are the legacy of this 400-year-old blueprint. Our modern technology has evolved significantly since the 1600s, but has the underlying logic of corporate greed really changed at all?